Hi, and welcome to the first ever virtual WCBS Business Breakfast. I'm Steve Scott from WCBS 880. You know, we have a very long and rich history of doing WCBS Business Breakfast. This one's a little different, but we're very excited about this because this may well be the most important business event we have ever done. Before we get to Joe, let's thank our sponsors. Investors Bank. If your business isn't banking with Investors Bank, it should be. Investors Bank, member FDIC. And Spectrum Business, delivering the best internet, phone, and TV solutions to small businesses for less. Spectrum Business. And now on to our program and your host, WCBS business anchor, Joe Connolly.
Thank you, Steve. Hello, everybody. It is so good to be with you at such an important time to share business knowledge. We thought it was smart to get together like this remotely to support your efforts to build back your business. We'd planned to all be together in March in Stanford. Well, we all know what happened to those plans. So we have an all-star group joining us this morning. And soon we will get to some great questions that you sent us. But first, let me introduce our guests. Cindi Bigelow of Bigelow Tea. Cindi,
Hi.
Bigelow Tea is a third-generation family business that's become a national business, but Cindy's instincts and heart are still like those of a local small business owner. And she's also an advisor to Governor Lamont on bringing businesses back to Connecticut. Michael Bednark of Bednark, high-end displays and fabricating. He is located in the world-famous Brooklyn Navy Yard, which has become a leading innovation center for the whole country. There are 500 cool new businesses there, and there's a waiting list to get in. And Michael Bednark was featured on 60 Minutes as the first business owner in America to pivot to making medical equipment, which has led him to more new businesses already. And third, Joe Colangelo of the Boxcar app for finding commuter parking spaces near train stations. Well, we know what happened to that business too, went to zero. And Joe has founded several other new businesses in the last 3 months by repurposing the parking app for new uses. We'll be showing some questions that you have sent in to us, but first let's start by going around. I'd like to ask each of you, based on what you have been through in the last 3 months, what is the main advice that you would give to other business owners to keep their business moving forward? Cindi.
Well, for me, it was very, very important that it was all about safety. We have 3 manufacturing facilities in the United States of America with 400, I'd like to say, family members. And tea was a beverage of choice during this difficult time. So from a pivoting perspective, that wasn't required. However, from keeping the factories open, it was substantially all about safety. So it really was just spending quality time looking at everything in a way, Joe, that I've never had to look at things before, and constantly challenging myself to raise the bar and raise the bar and raise the bar again and again, and continuing to bring everyone along with me and understanding why we were doing what we're doing. So it was about safety, looking at things completely different, upside down in terms of ways we were examining how we operate and bringing everyone along with me to understand. Because with 400 people, you have some people that feel very differently than others about some of the things we were doing to keep our place safe.
How did you find the quality time to strategize, Cindi, while coping with all these unexpected issues?
Well, first of all, it's a great question. We had a lot of incoming that I know that Joe and Michael are going to share with you as well. We had a ton of incoming, but it was paramount. And so my executive team and myself, I work very much in a team setting. And so we met sometimes twice a day at the beginning, certainly daily. Now we're down to once a week, which is good, and just constantly challenging ourselves. And I will be honest with you. And again, I know Joe and Michael are going to have the same experience. What was good in the morning wasn't good in the afternoon. And what we thought we had locked and we'd send out procedures wasn't good enough the next day. So you had to be in constant contact and challenging yourself. And I try to pride myself on thinking ahead. What else does that mean? And I found myself really just operating at, like, you know, as fast as I could, just to continue to try to keep up with what else we needed to do it right at Bigelow and for our employees. It was hard. It was a lot of work.
Michael, your key advice for moving ahead during a time like this?
I think for us, our biggest takeaway from this was like our communication, how we communicated with our team. We had a lot of team working from home, and for us, it was just, I think the feedback we got early on is like we weren't communicating well enough, and we weren't fostering that community that you naturally sort of have when everyone's in a team setting in an office together. So the biggest thing was clear communication, making sure that everyone knew what was going on, what was to come, and what we were unsure of. I think we had to really focus on our communication and keeping everyone in the loop, and sort of up to date on what we were doing. I think we struggled with that in the beginning, and we're still struggling with it, but we're working much harder now to make sure that we're still creating that culture, still communicating clearly about what's going on. Going back to like not knowing what was going the morning to the afternoon, we really needed to keep communicating, keep changing our stance, keep adjusting our stance, keep figuring out what we were going to be doing next, and then communicating that to the team while also saying, hey, this could change.
And communicating what specifically, Michael? The specs on a project or some new idea that you maybe have just thought about for a minute or two?
We had a lot of, early on we made a lot of changes. We made wage reductions, and we changed who was coming into the office, who was going out. So we're just sort of communicating, hey, when are these wage reductions changing? Are they going to change? What is our new business coming up? What are we going to look like in 6 months? Just really making sure everyone was on the same page and knew what was going on and knew the tasks that they needed to accomplish. I mean, we were still sort of moving projects along, but we weren't sure when we were going to come back. So we needed to communicate with our clients like, hey, we're still working on this project. We're not physically making anything for you, but we're moving along the engineering. We're moving along. Maybe we can figure out like when we're going to ship it. But then we're also saying, hey, we don't know when we're going to be back in the shop to build whatever you need. But we're going to, we'll keep communicating weekly. Like, this is what's happening now. This is what's happening now. So just keep, basically, I mean, a huge thing we learned is just like communicating amongst ourselves when you're not in an office next to each other.
Wow. Fascinating explanation of how communicating is done now.
It's really important in your personal life and in business.
What's that?
I said communication is very important in your personal life and your business life. That's what
more than ever.
Exactly.
Michael, how many new businesses have you started in the last 3 months?
I mean, we've started a few different things. I think one thing that's really taken off is these dividers that we're putting in for hire taxis. So your Ubers and your Lyfts, where we worked with the TLC late or middle of May, and we got some approvals, and we were working with Uber and Lyft trying to figure out what they're going to be requiring for their drivers for safety protocol. So what we saw during April and May was like these really makeshift dividers that Uber and Lyft drivers were putting in their cars. So we took what we learned from our face shield manufacturing and sort of transferred that into the taxi service cars. So we're now installing these really lightweight, simple to install, non-damaging to the car dividers that we've been putting in. That's sort of been a business that's been really well. We're doing about 100 a week, if not more. So that's one thing that's really taken off. And it was interesting because we've never really worked with city government or TLC or anything like that. So we've got sort of our toes into that water. And we're continuing to install those and continue to like refine and take feedback from the drivers.
That's great. Joe, what advice would you give to business owners to keep moving forward as you have done so well?
Yeah, I think it depends where you are in that business spectrum. A lot of people have seen their revenue fall 25%, or I always say that we were very lucky that our revenue fell 100%. We were in the commuting business. We do parking and transportation for mostly New York City area commuters in the suburbs. And yeah, our business went from 700 parkings a day to 0. And that really allowed us to zoom out and reconsider, the entire purpose of our business. And so what we did for 2 weeks before we made any moves was we talked to our customers a lot. And, again, whether your business is down 10% or 90%, or your business is up because people are buying more of your product, that's probably my biggest recommendation right now is talk to your customers on the phone. Just say, hey, can I grab you for 15 minutes? I just want to hear what your problems are, because there may be these ways that you can solve their problems that you haven't thought of yet. And, the customer's always right. And right now there's this massive change going on in terms of what customers want. And if you're not talking to your customer on a regular basis, then maybe that feedback loop isn't as tight as it could be. And you're missing out on some potential valuable advice or valuable goods or services you could be selling to your customers.
So you talk to customers who are buying nothing from you right now because they were parking customers. Those are the first ones you polled. It's a great idea.
Exactly. And, when you look at what your company has, we said, okay, we've got a very solid technology, a good team that handles operations and customer service, and we have 15,000 customers in these suburban areas in New York and Connecticut and New Jersey. These are some really great assets that we have that we can start selling other things like groceries or auto detailing, and partner with other vendors. At the same time, the big thing that we have is trust, and so you might. Whether you're a butcher, baker, or a candlestick maker, it doesn't really matter because you have this asset of trust with your customers. People have come to you and you've delivered to them and you've taken their refunds and you've given them good customer service over the years. And that's something that you can leverage. That is an infinitely leverageable asset, trust, because it takes so hard. It's so hard to build trust. It takes so long to build it. And so, if I see an ad for a tea company that I've never purchased anything from before and they're trying to sell me something that's not tea, I'm going to say, well, I don't know, that's kind of weird. I'll just go buy that from the original manufacturer. But if I've been buying Bigelow teas for 20 years and they say, hey, we've got this other thing for you, I feel like it's a very easy sell because you have this trusted relationship.
Cindi?
Joe, I want to add one thing. I really like what Joe just said that I'd like to emphasize for those that are listening in. And Joe, just like you said, we have divisions that went to zero overnight. Our food service away from home division, literally zero. And so what I have been doing in my position is I've been talking to all my sales team. Once a week, I'll talk to a retail salesperson as well as a away from home food service salesperson just to interview them and do exactly what you just said, which I highly recommend. I'm talking to the team that is having zero sales. What are they doing? What are the connections? What can I learn? What can they learn? How can I help them also stay connected, like Michael said, to the whole business by better communicating, as well as the divisions that are doing really well, talking to them, what's happening, what are you seeing? What does that mean for our future? What can we learn? So I really like Joe's point of dissecting your business and where it's zero or where it's 200%. And we actually have both. And listening to the salespeople and encouraging the salespeople. And the other thing I'm doing that I think might be something of value is I'm saying to my sales team, whether it's a good news story or not a good news story, use me. Let me send a note out. If they were able to open up some new restaurants or they were able to at least get something going, let me send a note saying congratulations. If they've been for 30 years with one of our distributors, they're still family to us. How do I write a note to them saying, I understand you were just furloughed. I hope things are going to turn around. I just want to let you know we're thinking of you. We've been with you for a long time. We appreciate everything you've done. There's these little touch points right now from a humanity perspective we should be doing. We can start there. But I also think there's a lot of good learning. So I really want to support Joe's comments about dissecting the businesses, having that additional communication like Michael's saying, and learn from it, both good and not so good.
Michael, one last comment from you. I see you shaking your head before we go to some of the
it's all. I think that's all. What everyone's saying is crucial. It's like learning. Basically, what we've been doing is like look at our business, look at what we can do, what we've never done, what's the equipment we have, who are the people that we have, and how can we leverage their talents into something brand new. Knowing like I don't want to go into a completely new business, but something that's not too far, not that far off of an iteration of my business. What can I do? How can I help? How can I service people with the team and the equipment that I have? That's basically what we've been doing for the last 8 weeks.
And that's a good example too, to not go into something completely different, because your business was using plastics and shields in making beautiful displays for Fifth Avenue windows, right?
Yeah.
So making medical equipment and partitions for inside Ubers would seem to be a completely different business, but it's about plastics.
Yeah,
right?
it's the same materials, it's the same equipment. It's just taking our design team and our engineering team and like shifting them into a car setting versus a store window or a store floor. It's just taking what we know and moving it into something different. But that's not like we're not trying to sell something completely. We're not trying to sell tea over here. We're
Thank God. Think about it.
But maybe we could sell like one thing we've thought about is sort of like influencer boxes. Putting together kits so brands can stay connected with their main audience, but you're shipping something in home that in it maybe has a pair of shoes, maybe it's a stopwatch, maybe it's some sweatbands, something simple, but it keeps people engaged, keeps them, in the brand, thinking about the brand. So just different things that you can do that aren't in-store experiences, but can be a nice at-home experience.
Wait a minute, did you just invent a new phrase in front of us? Influencer boxes?
No, that's not a new phrase.
Influencer boxes or something?
No, influencer kits are something that's, it creates hype. It's for people, like your YouTube stars, your Instagram stars.
People like you, Joe.
People like you, exactly. So something you send out and they can unbox, on their social platforms, or it just keeps them all sort of in the loop, and it creates hype around a new product launch.
So, Michael?
Yes.
I have something that you could put in your box. Are you ready?
Yes. Oh, there you go. Have you guys pivoted into the Bigelow mask?
Nice.
No, we had some employee just make them for me. I swear to God, I almost cried. I thought it was just.
They're cute. They're very cute. I have just the standard issue.
Hey, I'll mail you some. I'll mail you guys some for free.
Okay. I'll send you my address.
Let's move now to some of the questions that people have sent in. And we will start off with a famous business owner who has in the past come to some of our CBS Business Breakfast, and she just sits there and listens to the ideas going around the room.
Hi, Joe. It's Esther Fortunoff. It's really nice to participate in your breakfast virtually. I'm just wondering when people will go back to buying luxury items, jewelry or fancy dresses, when they're not getting together in big groups. What's going to make our economy feel strong enough for people to want to do that?
Anybody?
Well, it was my 5-year anniversary this weekend, and I definitely, I have a local store in Brooklyn that I use, and I was able to communicate with them via email, and we scheduled a pickup. So I bought some jewelry for my wife for our 5-year anniversary. I think it's just the difference of that in-store experience versus the online experience and communicating online. I think I don't buy a ton of luxury goods, so I don't know what the parameters are for what people need in buying luxury goods. But I think, people do benefit from going in-store and that in-store experience and that personal experience with, your shopper, whoever you work with in those stores. So I've just shifted what I would have done in-store onto email and, phone conversations. What I did this weekend was I don't want my wife to know, but I emailed them and said, hey, a 5-year anniversary this weekend. I'd like to pick up something on Thursday. What do you have in your stores in Brooklyn that I can pick up from? And they sent me, they know me from the past of what I've ordered, and they sent me through a list of items that were available, and then I chose from them, and then they're like, come pick it up from 2 to 3. So that was sort of my experience in buying jewelry recently. But I think it's gonna come back. It's just gonna be slow, and it's gonna be more personal. Like, can we make it more personal and more scheduled? I think.
And Joe or Cindi, just jump in. Don't wait for me if you want to.
We send out a survey every week asking people when they expect they're going to be going back to normal from a commuting perspective and a social gatherings perspective. 82% of our customers said between Labor Day and the end of the year. So 18% anticipate that prior to Labor Day, they will start commuting again and getting back to normal with their business. And I do think that, one of these large drivers of luxury goods is being seen in it, right? Of course, they're beautiful in themselves, but people buy them because they're in social situations with other people. And when you take that social situations away, you see, people buy a lot more sweatpants in Q2 of this year than they've ever bought in the history of the country. So, I'd say Labor Day to the end of the year, if our customers commuting are going to be using that same calendar for getting back to their social lives.
Will you keep these new businesses from pop-up drive-in theaters to produce drive-through pickups going permanently now, Joe? Are those here to stay?
We're going to follow the customer, like we always have, right? So we had a long-term vision of building up parking supply and demand outside of the 6 largest MSAs in the country, and then down the road turning that into more services that are added on, where we can provide a passport to the suburbs to interact with all these small businesses, and at the same time give those small businesses better technology tools. That was always the 5-10 year plan, but I don't know what parking demand is going to be like for a long time. So it looks like we're accelerating the passport to the suburbs plan and sticking with the areas like Fairfield County, Morris, Union, all over New Jersey. And the drive-in movies are not money makers, but they acquire a lot of customers, and so we're able to then get these customers, and hopefully, by the end of the year, we figured out something else to sell them if they don't need parking.
Don't go to Christmas trees. That's already taken by many. Cindi, do you have any sense of when things will come back to normal?
Well, what I was going to just say, Esther, is I really, again, talking to my sales team around the country, it really varies by region. We have some salespeople that basically are saying you wouldn't even know there was COVID by how people are really interacting in the community. So I think you're going to see a more surge, more back to normal in some of those communities. Other communities are being much more careful, or at least more concerned before they get out there. So it's going to vary by the country, by the part in the country. And I also think we have to just be patient. I don't know if it's going to be back to normal for quite some time. So I think we have to prepare for that. But I do see in certain categories, there is a pent up sort of response. So I think when people are getting back out there, there is a pent up response. Instead of one pair of sweatpants, they're buying 10 sweatpants or whatever. So I'm not sure in luxury jewelry, but I think it's going to vary by the part of the country. We have to be patient, and I do think there is some pent up. So I don't know if that answers her question exactly.
Let's go to another question. This is from the founder of Smart Hustle Media, who is a consultant and who does a lot of events.
Hey, Joe and panelists, thank you all for convening this awesome WCBS Small Business Breakfast virtually. Really appreciate it. My name is Ramon Ray. I'm the founder of smarthustle.com. And my question is, video is very important. It's powerful. I believe video is a great tool for humanizing and personalizing one's brand. In fact, I think it's an essential tool for building trust with the current customers you have, and even those who are prospective customers. It's a great way to educate and build the relationship to nurture them to a sale. However, I find still that many small business owners, they just don't want to use video. They shy away from putting their face on video. They shy away from using video in their marketing sometimes. They're waiting for it to be very perfect, or a variety of reasons. So the question is, what is your best tip? What are your thoughts and insights for how the smallest of small businesses can really start using video to enhance their marketing and, in fact, build their personal brand, or as I say, to increase their celebrity CEO status? Thanks so much.
I have a comment on that one for sure. I'm a big fan of that, especially for small businesses, because it does do exactly what he just said. Get your voice out there and let them know who you really are. I understand it might be concerning. No one wants to see their face. They don't think they're good enough. They're not great actors. They don't look whatever. But it's such a wonderful way. That doesn't matter. What matters is your voice, if you are comfortable doing that, because you really can tell your story. I think small businesses have a really unique story. What makes them special? What makes them different? And that video, if you can take the time with those around you to help develop it, really give you an opportunity to have that transparency that people are really looking for, as well as that ability to genuinely say why you're different and what makes you special. So I love video. I'm a big fan of it. If you can figure out, get yourself in front of that camera to do it.
It's a great answer. Anybody else see the video?
I think my answer to that would just be like, you need to just do it. Get out there and figure out, like, really look inside of like why you started your business and why you want to do this and why you think people want what you're providing. And I think you need to just start creating content, and then that content will turn into something. You will find your voice, but it's probably going to take 5, 10, 15 chances at working into it, and then you'll find your flow. You'll find out what works with your clients. But the hardest part is just starting.
So I have not started, and between Ramon, Cindi, and Mike, I'll start this week. It's been one of those things that the friction you're talking about of getting out there and recording this face is very aggravating. So, okay, Ramon, thank you. You taught me today. I'm not teaching you anything. I'll get out there.
Exactly.
Here's a question from the owner of a public relations agency, and she happens to have a lot of clients in travel and resorts.
Hi, Joe. Cathy Decker here from Decker Royal in New York City. And I have 2 questions for this morning's breakfast. The first question is regarding space. My company runs out of a shared workspace, which is really typical for so many entrepreneurial companies in New York. And my question is, should we continue to invest in space or people in this economy? The second one is I want to talk about pricing. With so many people, unfortunately, out of work right now, there's a lot of talent on the street. With freelancers competing with small companies, what do we need to do about pricing? I look forward to hearing from you, Joe, and I hope you and yours are well.
Thanks, Cathy. Good questions. Big questions.
Should I jump off?
Yeah.
I think invest in people. I think what we're going to learn is that you don't need anyone in any specific place. If it's a job that doesn't require like your hands, if you can work from home or work remotely, I think that's really what this has proven to, that can work. I know we've sort of found it. My business is really hands-on. Like, we have to have people actually making stuff and assembling stuff. So we struggle. We have back and forth on that. But that's my takeaway is, like, if you can find good people, but maybe they're remote, especially in the travel sales type business, I think people could probably work from anywhere. Maybe they're working in Tahiti to sell to Tahiti. I don't know. That's sort of my take on it, especially in that I have my aunt's in travel. So I think you can probably work from anywhere. And then in competition wise, I think you need to reevaluate where you are and who your client is, and talk to your customers and see what they're willing to spend, and what's your added value. We always talk about that with our clients, like what value do we bring that allows us to work with our clients, and why would they want to call us every day? That's sort of my takeaway on it.
Cindi, profit margins, are they being squeezed? What's happening?
Well, I'd love to just go back to the people space question for profit. Yeah. And I don't want to get in front of Joe. He wanted to say something. I have a little bit of a different take than Michael, but I'm much older than Michael. I don't think it's an either or proposition, space or people. Obviously, people is the right answer. You always have to invest in your people. I'm also a fan of continuing to think about space and working together. I understand a lot of us are sort of running to the other side right now. And yes, maybe some businesses, and we have categories of our business that work from home. But I also love the community. I'm a big community person, and working together and that energy of being together and that bouncing off and making sure, right, Michael, you said before, communication, they're right there so that you don't miss that opportunity to communicate and to get that spur of the moment opportunity that I think takes place. So I'd like to say to Cathy, I don't necessarily think it's an either or. I think you can still do focus on space and also focus on people, so that your people have that community to really sort of have that synergy that I think takes place when you're working together. So that's the first one. From a margin perspective, well, first of all, in our food service division, we have 0 sales, so there's no squish on margin there. There's no money. But from a retail perspective, there really hasn't been a squeeze on margin at this time because they won't even run a promotion in any of these accounts, whether it's club or it's mass or it's drug or it's grocery. They don't have time to even run any promotions because they have so many items that are selling so quickly and just keeping them on the shelf. So it's been more about getting stuff on the shelf than on margin. But I do believe in Michael answering Cathy's question about pricing. It's about value. Like if you think about a box of Bigelow tea, it's about $3 a box. And there's boxes out there for $6 and there's private label for $2. It's about us. I mean, personally, I sometimes think we get the short end of the stick because people say, oh, it's only $3. It must not be great quality. I'm like, wait, what? We're trying to give you great quality for great value. And that actually can be a double-edged sword. So for Cathy, I want to support Michael. It's about really the value proposition being the focus, and the price should follow that.
So Joe, you're selling time saving. You're selling time back.
Right. So from my perspective, just personal experience, it's difficult working from home. I did it for 2 weeks and then came back into the office wearing a mask. And, you know, I told my team, you don't have to come back, but I'm here. And, you know, a lot of them have self-selected. They want to be in the space. They're not just working by themselves. They're working as part of a team. That's why they joined, and that's why they enjoy working here. And so I guess you'll see all types of people. In terms of investing, I don't know if now is the time to invest in more space. So, you know, I think we're learning how to be more efficient working from home with Zoom and all these other technologies that are bringing people together. And maybe that's, you know, that space is used less frequently, or you rent out a larger space once a week, and you're able to come together and kind of have that team cohesion on top of all the remote tools that make things very efficient. I do think it's like, I'm not going to paint a pretty picture. I think margins are probably going to get squeezed pretty heavily by a lot of factors. I don't know how the consumer is going to be feeling by the end of the year. It feels like the consumer's kind of been holding its breath and spending, you know, extra. I know personally, and me and a lot of friends, like we've eaten out more or taken takeout from our local restaurants more than we ever have. And we, you know, given probably more tips than we've ever given, right? Because we need these people to stay in business, and who knows how close they are to not making it through this. So I do think that this is the time to prepare for the worst. And if there's a way to take those freelancers and make them an asset rather than a competitor, that's another opportunity. Because again, in travel, you are in the business of satisfying people's travel needs on a repeat basis. And that's why you build up trust, you build up a brand, and you have an agency rather than doing it for freelance, right? Because they know your brand and that you're only going to hire and work with people who are good. So the more people you can bring under that umbrella, maybe now, because they don't have work, you don't need to pay them a high salary. Maybe you say, listen, you're going to be commission only, but you're looking to do stuff. I've got a brand, and you're able to take that, what would otherwise be a margin compression instance, and turn it into something that, in fact, allows you to expand your margins and your capacity.
Have you hired new employees, Joe, in this?
Yes, we have hired 3 new employees during this, and that's it's, you know, one of them we hired half-time, and they're able to work from home, and that's something that in a competitive landscape back in January, there's no way we would have been able to do that. And that's you know, if you go to layoffs.fyi, this shows all the technology companies and the layoffs that have happened in them. And a lot of them have actual, what do you call it? Like an inventory search, right? Where you can go to like Uber, and of the 6,700 people that Uber's laid off, you can search the resumes of 1,700 of those people on Uber, and what they're looking for, what their skills are, whether they're willing to relocate or do remote work. So again, it's not just the tools for remote work that are enhancing, but the sort of hiring gig work seems to be taking off and giving business owners some more insight into some of the recently laid off rockstar performers.
What's that website again, Joe?
Layoffs.fyi. And it's updated daily.
It seems as though the shift is that in the stronger economy, the growth formula was to come up with a new premium price product and grow that way. Now it seems that there's so much pressure on prices, as you indicate you think there will be, Joe, that the way to grow is to come up with associated, logical, sensible new products, as opposed to developing a new premium version of your existing product?
Maybe. I don't know. Too much is still up in the air. That's one way for us to do it. I do, to that point, you have to attack your cost line, right? This is a good time to examine all the subscriptions that you're paying for, because if other people retrench, you don't want to be the one who retrenches last.
Yeah. No, I know for us specifically, we've taken this slow period to assess all our processes and how we track everything within our company. So over the last 6 weeks, we've been like digging deep, looking at where we've really had failures in accountability and trying to figure out how we can reassess and like come out of this stronger and with better process and better tracking. Because we would have never had a slowdown like this where we could have made those changes, or those changes, instead of happening over 2 months, would have taken 12 months because we were still running so fast at all the other projects. So that's like another thing we've been really evaluating and reassessing.
Yeah, one of the things that we're trying to do here is what I call lessons learned. And so I've asked, starting about 8 weeks ago, for my leadership team to work with their own teams and also just kind of keep a running log of what we need to do better. What are the lessons learned? What did we do well? What are the things we didn't do well? What were the opportunities? Where were there costs that we saw there were issues associated with it? So no matter how your business is doing, you really do need to say, how do you come out of this better? How do we come out of this better? And I think, lessons learned to me is a real interesting opportunity to ask that question over and over and over.
And we're starting to run out of time a little bit. So Neil, I'm going to jump around here. Producer Neil, could you play the question with Karen Tannenbaum, Neil?
Hi, I'm Karen Tannenbaum, Tannenbaum Law. We handle IRS and New York State tax problems. We could be found at litaxattorney.com. Historically, a main source of our business has been referrals from accountants and attorneys I've met over the years at live presentations and face-to-face networking events. What advice do you have for creating a more robust online marketing presence now that these types of events may be limited?
That's the question. There you go, Karen. No, that's a big issue for so many people. Is that face-to-face that you get? And so what do you do so that Karens can continue to get those referrals? Again, maybe going back to the conversation we had about videos, doing things like that, educational videos, reaching out to your customers, seeing what are the things that they're doing that you can tap into to support, etc. But I mean, we're really going to have to dig down deep, because those days, at least for now, of being able to go to larger settings and being able to exchange cards is very different. So how do you think about ways to reach out, like I'm doing with my sales team, calling every one of them and saying what's happening, what are their opportunities? I think it's going to be Zoom, picking up the phone and writing letters.
I mean, I personally use a lot of LinkedIn, reaching out to people on LinkedIn. I mean, events were like 40% of my business, so we're hoping something comes back in those areas. I sort of just started getting into those sort of more breakfast networking events in the last 2 years, but right now we're using mostly LinkedIn. I'm also trying to see if there's other possibilities for LinkedIn type services that might be helpful, that maybe are more focused per industry. But yeah, LinkedIn right now seems to be my one thing. I mean, there's good and bad out of it, but that's where I've been looking right now.
Yeah, it's very difficult to replace what all business owners recognize is this, like, the serendipity of conferences where you're talking and networking. I think people who own their own business understand that some of the biggest deals you've ever had have come from meeting somebody at a conference. And so there's this is a great event from Joe, and hopefully technology continues to advance so that he can. I mean, you look at, Joe used to be able to do these breakfasts quarterly. and there was much more serendipity and sort of people meeting in person. But if the tools can advance so that people can sort of have like little breakout sessions during this, well, Joe may be able to have 12 of these a year because he doesn't have to rent a place in a hotel. He might be able to have 24. He might be able to do this every 2 weeks, and it becomes a much more regular thing. So I think, on the one hand, the value of the in-person networking, it's very tough to replace. But if we're able to use some of these tools over time to, replace it in some small part, the frequency of these events will be much more, frequently occurring, and you won't be bound by your geography anymore. So you'll be able to do, networking with people up in Rochester, New York, for your law firm practice at the same time that, you're sitting in your living room.
But I also like what Joe said. I really like that idea of having these, but then having breakout sessions, right? Mm-hmm. So, you sign up and you have 24 people or 12 people or whatever the number is for each one of your speakers. And then you have an opportunity for a little one-on-one, and then they can spend some quality time together. So might not be all done in 45 minutes like this, but you could do maybe 40 minutes of this and then 40 minutes of breakout session. I love that.
My wife does happy hour with their work, and I guess Zoom has this capability where you can break into teams, and so they do trivia, and then they're like they like quickly go to their little teams. They have like 4-6 people on a team, then they come back. I didn't even know that existed until last week.
Yeah, I just took part in that with the NYU graduation, with the program that I graduated with at NYU. I got to speak with 3 or 4 students prior to then a group setting where we sort of ran through the graduation ceremony and talked with everyone. But it was a nice thing where we sort of started out going from different groups, talking one-on-one with individuals that were graduating this year, and then everyone came together, all the alumni. I think there was like 200 people on it. But that was something that we did. You sort of had those breakout sessions. It worked really well.
And here's a question from a business owner who's just wondering how they will operate in the future.
Hi, I'm Neil Sonnenberg. I live in Fresh Meadows, Queens. I'm a senior partner at the accounting firm Marks Paneth here in New York City. And my question for Joe and the panel is concerning the intimate relationship we have with various staff members and questions that come up or discussions that come up during a day. So those that have offices, we are wondering how best to acclimate with this pandemic situation when our office reopens, whether people should stand outside the door and kind of like yell their questions, which really is not, we don't think appropriate. Come into the office is maybe not keeping the social distancing. So we're just not certain how we should approach this. Maybe we should all go into conference rooms, but then we're going to lose valuable time. So I'd appreciate if the panel could give us some kind of thought, some of their thoughts.
I can tell you that, because my opening was just about keeping this place safe. And our office is, for the most part, now the corporate office has the leadership team, the executive team is back, and we're rotating everybody in. So what we've done is masks anytime you're out of your office or out of your cube area. And we do have meetings where one would come into an office. But most of our meetings, we do move into larger rooms with at least 6-foot distance between each one. We also have set up protocol literally where you are cleaning before you sit down and you are cleaning after you sit down. I know this is a little bit of a luxury, but we also hired people that come in the day. They're constantly cleaning. They have gloves and masks, and they come in and they actually clean offices as well as community space. So I think you can do it. You just have to be very, very careful and clean everything before and after, and wear your mask and keep them 6 foot apart as much as possible.
Yeah, for me, we had the luxury. We moved our entire office to another spot in our warehouse, and moved everyone, separate everyone out, and put in new dividers. Sorry, excuse me. And we're all, everyone's wearing a mask. If you're outside of your cubicle, you have to wear a mask. And we just have a very thick deck of requirements for when you enter the building, when you leave the building. You have to fill out a morning survey to test see if you have any of the symptoms, and you get a thermometer reading as well. So we're taking every precaution. There's no easy way. It's just sort of looking at your office and seeing how you can adapt and meet the requirements of the CDC.
Yeah.
The only thing I would add, we're doing similar things with, forehead temperature reading every time you come in and log it, is that at the end of the day, contact tracing is going to be half of this, right? So half of it is going to be social distancing and masks and things of that nature. And then the other half is, well, you can't fix it entirely, right? Like the clever little viruses are going to come into the world and they're going to spread. And so in order to mitigate mass spreading events throughout your company, the contact tracing of who's in the office every day and who's eating lunch at what time, so that when something does happen, and we don't live in a perfect world and we can't control everything, you can say, okay, well, Susie was diagnosed with coronavirus or something else, and she was in the office Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday of this week. And so we now can very easily go to, whether it's an Excel sheet or you're using a contact tracing app or program, we can now go to these days and say that she interacted with these 7 people Monday, these 8 people on Tuesday, and these 10 people on Thursday, and tell all those people to go quarantine for 14 days. So half of it is before, trying to stop the spread, and the second half is when there may be an instance of spreading, how do we handle that? So because that's the other important part, and you can't stop this entirely, it seems.
And little things you can do, like we have signs on everything that you might touch: a refrigerator, a tea kettle, cabinet. And so, no, it's a tea kettle. Anyway, so it says do not touch, and we also have put in like paper toweling or whatever you want to call besides Lysol wipes all over the place, so that you don't really have to touch anything. And we only have 1 or 2 people in a cafeteria, in a locker room. I'm sorry, in our smaller kitchens, in our locker rooms, and they all have signs, either in this size room, maximum 1, in this size room, maximum 2. So there's just a lot of work. You need someone really thinking about it all the time.
Yeah, we're going into office spaces and helping them sort of change their layouts and sort of create more barriers. So if you have a cubicle that's only 42 inches tall, we're going in and adding another 24 inches, 30 inches on top of it. So it's everyone's sort of in a much more enclosed cubicle, and people can still walk around and they're not going to be affecting other people. But obviously, if you're in a one-on-one interaction, you have to be wearing a mask.
And we have individuals that we do, Neil, stay outside of their office. I have my mask, and they might be in their office without their mask, and I simply can lean in and say, hey, Jane, or hey, Fred, would you mind? I'm thinking about XYZ. What are your thoughts on that? And we have exchanges that are further apart than we normally would have.
Neil Caruso, the producer of the Business News, has some questions that people have emailed in as opposed to sending videos about the commercial real estate aspects of all of this. Neil.
Joe, we have got a lot of questions about commercial real estate. You have been reporting on it for the last few weeks, and we even posted some to Barbara Corcoran recently on our Spotlight podcast. Now, the big questions that we're getting about downsizing. So how can they find other owners interested in sharing space and splitting rent?
Well, I'm sure a lot of the real estate brokers are hearing the same thing, and it's just connecting with them to find out who else is only looking for X amount of space. So I think kind of working with that network.
Or just talking to the building you're in. I'm sure there's buildings that are, people are looking to either move out, or maybe there's opportunities where people can come together on a different floor or move around. I think I talked to building management right off the bat. I know we're talking with Navy Yard here, seeing what's available to us for, our business is down massive. So is there a way we can get some sort of rent abatement for a few months here to get us through the next few months, and then see what happens on the other side? Or do we extend the lease with better terms? This is probably the first time the Navy Yard's hearing this from me, so they might come after me. But our business is down. How can we, either how can you help us weather the storm, and then when we come out gangbusters on the other side, we'll make it up to you. But right now, how can we help you, and you can help us? So there's sort of
I couldn't agree more. If you own real estate and you're renting, like we have a property that has a daycare center in it. First thing we did, 3 months, don't worry about rent. You're not going to pay us back, just zero. Yeah. And then we'll discuss it when you come back. But everyone has to give here. I mean, this is not about just operating the same as usual.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you there. Yeah, everyone's in this together, and we need to help each other. And, then we'll hopefully all be on the other side together.
We're hearing it very split, about 50-50 between landlords who are giving concessions and who are not. I also posted a while ago, and I'll repost it, a very simple half-page lease amendment that the Wall Street Journal found some lawyers to come up with, and I'll post the link to that half-page legal rent adjustment agreement. Neil, one other, well, that was one, wasn't it, Neil, about how do you negotiate a lower rent, wasn't it?
Right. The follow-up to this is how do you approach negotiations with landlords?
I mean, for us, we just ask straight up, like, what are you guys thinking? Where are you looking? I mean, squeaky wheel gets the grease, right? So just get out there, get ahead of it, see what, figure out what you think you can pay rent, what you don't think you can pay rent, and just try to find a deal and try to work out something. There's a lot of strategic ways you could, maybe add years onto your lease that maybe are at a fixed rate on the back end, or just see if there's some way. Because, I mean, some landlords are probably not in a position to give any, reductions. They're probably just leveraged too high. And hopefully, everyone can work together on this. Maybe that means the landlord needs to go to his bank and figure out what they're going to do because of X, Y, and Z. So there's so many players involved. It's just being, working together and trying to figure out what will work for everyone so that we're all better for it.
So getting the framework negotiating here. Sorry, go ahead, Jeff.
Some retailers are even agreeing to ending the lease and taking a monthly share of sales. We never heard about that till about a year and a half ago. It was actually at one of the CBS Business Breakfasts that Cynthia Rowley revealed that she was starting to get some landlords to say, okay, just stay and I'll take a % of sales. Let's close with an important one about the future of the nonprofit groups through all of this.
Hi, my name is Karen Halper. I live in Parkway Village in Queens, New York. I would like to know 2 or 3 specific recommendations or suggestions that you are making to our businesses here in New York City that could apply to our struggling not-for-profit organizations, which are a very important part of the life of the city. So I look forward to your answer. Thank you.
Well, I don't know if I'm answering her question. I certainly couldn't support Karen enough that the needs for nonprofit have always been essential. They're even more essential than ever. And I know that sharing that story and the needs and the increase in needs and the demands, I think, are important to be sharing for the for-profits. And also finding, Karen, the businesses that maybe are doing well, and how do you tap into that? The businesses that the nonprofit is servicing, and what corporation strategies and mission statements support that as well. But I think really getting out there and sharing the story of how the increase in demand, what you're seeing has been the impact today on those needs, I think are a pretty compelling story to be sharing and messaging and communicating to for-profits.
I know for us, what we're offering our services in the past where we've offered just sort of monetary donations. We're also offering services. I'm on the board of Van Allen Institute here in New York, and they're looking at how can we make quicker, more impactful projects here in New York, and also just how can we offer our services of building stuff to that monetary addition that we give them. But I mean, it's basically all these non-for-profits, functions through these big galas and these big social events and social gatherings that they can't do anymore. So how do you do that? You have to bring it online. You have to, maybe it's more sort of auctions or things like that are more adaptable to an online presence. But I think the biggest thing is it's more important than ever to support these groups. We can't just abandon them now. They are the ones, they're the fabric of the city, and we need to figure out how we can support them the best. In goods, is it just volunteering time? Because now you have time. Anything you can do to help them is crucial right now.
So just to add to that is the 2 specific pieces of advice that I gave earlier, which are attack your cost line, right? Everybody has to tighten their belts, recommend doing it sooner rather than later. So take that 15 minutes to call your everything that you've got a subscription to and see if they have negotiating, if they can give you a discount, and then talk to your customers, right? So in that case, it's the donors, that anyone who's given over the years, you just call them, say, like, how are you doing? Here's the situation we're in. Is there anything we can do to help you? Like, and you may be very surprised with how they react, saying this is a real crisis. And what crisis does is it brings out the best in good people, and it also brings out the worst in some other people, right? So talk to the people who have helped you over the years, and not everybody's going to be in the same situation, but a lot of them may be in a position to help, and just having a conversation with them is going to be, not even making an ask is going to be enough to get them to give you that support that you need right now and that the city needs right now.
So when do you know whether to continue on a new product idea or sales idea, and when to throw in the towel? How do you tell?
I'm an optimist.
Yeah. It's very tough.
You're asking for people.
Stop.
Businesses gets a bad rap for not being creative, but it's the ultimate creative tool, because you don't get to run a control and a variable experiment. And so it looks like we've done things right over the last few months, but I don't know. I could have done things a different way. And so that's the antagonism that every business owner has to deal with all the time. And, there are no answers, right? We have to make it up as we go along. I've pursued a lot of things that other people told me were dogs, were losers, that were never going to get anywhere, and they ended up being really good. And like Mike said, maybe that's given me too much optimism, and so I'll keep on pulling these threads, and I should stop. I wish I had an answer on that.
It's about looking at everything that's out there and making your decision based on your years of experience and the advice around you, the counsel that you're receiving. It's data, the metric and gut. I don't know what percentage of it is data and metrics and gut, but it's some combination of the above that makes you decide if you need to pivot, you need to keep pushing forward, or maybe you need to, make an about face. I can't answer this. Too many variables.
Yeah, I think if you want to make it about something very specific, I think it's just you have to look at the data and be like, we've done it for this long, and it's just been killing us or eating us alive, so we can't continue this on. Even though I'd be like, oh, but just one more time. But people will be like, stop.
Daylight is just around the corner, I swear.
So
I know that one. My team's like, no. I'm like, yes, we can keep going. We got this.
That's our job. That's our job.
Then you have the opposite of that. Somebody told me once, I decide on the morning when I get up, and I just said, I have had it with this. It's a gut decision. I'm through with this. Time to move on.
Yeah.
How about, if you would, just a closing comment or a suggestion or piece of advice from each of you to close up with?
Yeah, I mean, I'll just say this isn't easy. This is not easy. This isn't easy for anyone. And I hope the three of us aren't making it look like it is. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of challenging. So it's just constantly reassessing and listening more, and then taking all your years of experience and just keep pushing that envelope and keep pushing that bar up, no matter what. Just keep trying. And whatever that means is that last question. Do you pivot? Do you keep going? Do you turn around? But it's just not an easy thing right now. And there's no easy answers, except for I know for myself, it's challenging myself with my team and asking every single day, what else does this mean?
I think for me, it's like, I know moving forward, we're going to make mistakes. We're going to not make the right decisions. And it's learning from those mistakes and continuing to figure out what's next, what's going to be the right move. And don't be afraid. Just keep going and hope that you make the best choices.
This is hopefully this is the defining crisis of a generation. As such, I believe that everybody's personal and business brands are going to be defined by how we act during it. So think about this kind of with a historical lens looking back. How did you want to act during this crisis? Were you out there helping people, treating your counterparties, your partners fairly? because you will build up the best brand, and that brand will be around for 30, 40 years if you treat people fairly right now. And then the other part is just survival is enough. You don't have to pivot. You don't have to have 2020 doesn't have to be your best year. You don't have to conquer the world. Survival is enough. So if you feel bad that you see people out there creating brand new businesses, just to survive, you're going to be ahead of the game, and it's not going to be easy. If it was easy, everybody would do it.
Yeah, super well put, like that.
Yeah, I love that.
Thank you very much to all of you. You've been inspiring speakers with lots of practical ideas that people will be able to use. Thank you kindly for your experience.
Thanks, Joe. It was an honor.
Thanks, guys. Great working with you guys.
Have a good week, everyone.
Thank you for watching our first ever WCBS Virtual Business Breakfast, sponsored by Investors Bank. If your business is in banking with Investors Bank, it should be Investors Bank, member FDIC. And sponsored by Spectrum Business, delivering the best internet, phone, and TV solutions to small businesses for less. I miss talking with all of you after the breakfast, and we hope to see you all soon after the pandemic. In the meantime, we'd love to hear what you think about the program. Tell us what you took away from it and what you want to hear more of, and how we can best communicate your needs during this business crisis. Email us your message at wcbs880.com/contact us. I'm Joe Connolly. Thank you again. Be well and stay safe.